1, slate 1, take 1.
Oh, Daphne.
Take 14.
Daphne!
Slate 1, take 37.
I love you.
Scene 1, slate 1, take 83.
Will we ever survive?
No, 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 no!
Screaming at the screen. Okay, so I'd like to welcome my first ever guest on all of this nonsense, which is probably going to be the only podcast that we ever do. So it's Mr. Sammy Simmons from SamAct
Produced.
Thank you.
Hey, you got it right.
Awesome. So a bit of background here. I've known Sam for, 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
We did a film together, a little student film with a guy from London, Met Film School. About 3 years ago, where Sam was playing the lead, and I was the sad man in the corner with a microphone on a stick doing sound.
Yep.
And we've done a whole bunch of stuff ever since. So,
Yeah.
Sam, mate, we're just going to ramble. I've no ideas what I'm going to ask you. I've no ideas what I'm going to talk about. But if you'd like to maybe give our listeners or whoever's lying there in a drunken state trying to figure out where the off switch on the radio is at this point, what are you up to at the moment, mate?
What I'm up to, so I've just finished my 4th short film, which is all good. John's been helping me edit that, and he was holding the stick throughout the duration, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm an independent filmmaker. I've done 4 short films so far, 3 of which have been featured across 8 film festivals. I'm very proud.
Very fancy, mate.
I know, very fancy, since I've only been doing this for a good couple of years. So it's all good. I'm hoping that my latest short film, Unmissed, which will be soon out on Amazon, or probably already out there now on Amazon Prime, will be making waves. And currently that is in 2 film festivals, apparently 2 very prestigious film festivals. Liftoff Film Festival, which is based at Pinewood, and Portobello Film Festival, which is bills itself as the UK's largest independent film festival.
I know Portobello. I've been screened at Portobello a couple of times and stuff, and Portobello is absolutely lovely. I was going to say, it seems that Portobello, probably at least 10 years since I was last there, they screen anything and everything that they got sent. But I have got the distinction of being in 2 films that got rejected by Portobello, and I was thinking, is it that low? Is it that late? Or really, there isn't a room above a pub somewhere in Westbourne Grove that could just stick it on in the corner for us to watch just alone as we drink a quiet pint?
Oh, precisely.
So what's Unmissed all about, without giving too many spoilers away?
So Unmissed is a short film based around current issues that we face here in the UK, especially Eastern European migrants living here. So it's a hard-hitting short film. It hits on the issues that we currently face, such as Brexit and the effects of that on businesses as well as immigrants. So it also has a surreal twist to it, which is my twisted mind.
We'll come to that in a moment. Yeah.
Which people seem to love. So I'm hoping you guys will be shocked if you watch it. When you watch it, shall I say, it will be hard-hitting and it will bring realities to home.
Fantastic. So do we have dates for Liftoff and the Portobello Festival?
Liftoff is actually already done. Unfortunately, we didn't get shortlisted, but still being officially selected was just fantastic. Portobello is being screened on the 1st of September 2019. So we'll fingers crossed that we get shortlisted for that. I'm only up against 7 other short films at Portobello. So
easy. We'll have them, mate. We'll have them.
Easy, hopefully.
We'll rumble them at least. So where does the inspiration for what you're writing come from? I mean, I was quite surprised. A bit of background. The first film I did with Sam was a film called Yellow Leaves.
Yep.
Where you were playing a character who was borderline autistic or certainly on the spectrum.
Yep.
And I made the mistake of thinking you were a quiet, well-spoken, thoughtful kind of chap.
Well, I am.
And
in real life.
in real life. And then you came along a little while later with Disturbed, Not Disturbed?
Yes, so my first short film was Disturbed, Not Disturbed, which was about a guy who was hallucinating, basically, and self-harming. So my short films that I write do have slight realism to them. It brings out the home truths of some people, and it does have some personal touches to them. But Disturbed Not Disturbed was featured in 4 film festivals, which I am very proud of. And it was also screened at the BFI.
Very fancy.
I know, very fancy. It was weird seeing my face. I was the face on that. I was the lead in that. Also because I went through 3 film directors who either dropped out on me or on the last minute didn't show up on the day forced me to direct it as well. So the fact that it's been in 4 film festivals, and the fact that I was both the lead and the director of the whole thing, give me the confidence that I can actually go and do this thing. And since then I've done 4 short films, which have all mostly been in film festivals. So yeah, I can actually do this thing.
Absolutely, mate. I'll stand as testament to that, having done...
Yeah, 3 of
films?
them. 3 of them,
Yeah.
yeah. John was a sound guy on 3 of them, and an actor in 2 of them.
True, very, very true.
Because John turned around to me, said he wanted to try out acting since he studied it.
Yeah, it's been, you know, I studied it and did nothing, you know.
Precisely.
So I thought, you know, maybe 30 years on, I'll try and step up from being an extra and
Yeah,
see if I can
fantastic.
speak in front of a camera without shaking
Absolutely
too
brilliant.
much. Like so.
I mean, the first film he did was Duncan, which was my first comedy attempt. And I had an actor drop out on me literally 6 hours before the shoot time, which was just annoying. It's at 1 o'clock in the morning, you get a message saying, you know, I can't come. And like, then I thought, right, okay, so John's done a bit of acting. And thankfully, John had an apprentice stick holder, shall I say.
That's very true. We did have somebody with short arms standing in the
Very
corner
short
on a really
arms.
high stool, trying to boom up for us.
So yeah, John came in with an apprentice to be the sound guy. And I was like, do you want to act? And he's like, yes!
I'll be honest, I did have ulterior motive. I don't know if you remember at the time for bringing in the apprentice. It was very fortunate timing for me that don't remember the young lady's name. I'll look it up and we'll fix that in post. Insert name here. You were amazing, thanks. I knew that I had to, on the first day of shooting Duncan, I had another gig that night, and I knew that I had to leave at 4 o'clock to be for this gig.
Yes,
And
I
I was
remember.
working on the Princess Trust gig down at a very, very fancy, down at the Connaught rooms and stuff. So I need to be there so I knew I needed to leave the venue at 4 o'clock. So and you were scheduled to finish at 5:30, 6. So I was
Yeah.
kind of like, I remember writing the schedule for the day as first AD on that one and thinking, let's just write a really easy scene in the stairwell at the end of it where you can just do it all on a boom mic and hopefully she won't mess it up too much. So yeah, so I'm admitting now it was an ulterior motive as opposed to altruism that made me kind of bring the assistant in, which turned out, you know, fortunately in the end, playing the creepy, weird,
Yeah, the
strange computer geek
IT guy.
Yeah, the IT
Sid.
guy. That's the one. Sid, the IT guy. Yeah, I remember it well, mate.
Oh, that was brilliant. I mean, the fact that originally there was probably about 6 or 7 lines for the original guy, but we managed to whittle it down to like 2 grunts.
a couple of grunts and things. I think my favourite memory of all of that is when we were shooting. We did like little 30-second teasers for each of the
These
cast.
characters.
And I don't think I even spoke. It was just a couple of squeaks and
It
just
was.
nervous looks and stuff for mine. And at the end of it, just as you said cut, you just cut it and then immediately you said to me, that was really creepy. That was the creepiest thing ever and stuff like that. And I
We
wasn't
actually
sure
kept
whether to
that.
be insulted or flattered, but it made it into the trailer in the end.
Definitely
like, you know,
flattered,
so,
mate.
yeah.
We kept it in the final cut, and it was the most well received out of all of the
Fair play.
30-second trailers that we did. So well done.
It's nice.
Bravo to that.
Thank you, mate. It's nice to have made such an impact. So just going back a little bit, you're talking about directors dropping out and actors dropping out, and having done a million little short films and stuff like that. You know, what's people's problems? You know, what do you think? You know, is it just a lack of commitment? Is it being scared to put your money where your mouth is? You know, I always say about film, anybody can talk a good fight. Anybody can say, oh, I can direct, or I'm an amazing producer, I'm all this kind of stuff, and you get found out really quickly on a film set what
for
you're
sure.
prepared to do or what you can do and all that kind of stuff. So do you find from the first films you've made, you probably got more dropouts than now you're a little bit more established, now you're a little bit more experienced with what you're doing? So do you think it's down to just actors or crew being rubbish, or is it down to you're making a more prudent choice of people?
I think it comes down to choice. I mean, when you're first starting out, you'll just take anyone who's like, yeah, I'll do it.
I still will, mate.
But for Disturbed Not Disturbed specifically, so one of my directors just didn't want to do it after he said he would. The second one turned around to me and said, you know, I had to go away. So I was like, okay, fair enough.
It's nice that it was specific.
Yeah,
You know,
it was,
that's a
go
pretty
away.
good I have to go away.
It's the fact that you get me a month's notice. I was like, yeah, okay,
Oh,
that's
okay, well,
fine.
that's not bad.
too
Yeah,
bad.
I mean, a month's fair enough.
And then I turned around to someone else, and I was like, yeah, cool. Do you want to do it? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. So we waited on the day. We waited. He didn't show up, and we all are probably about half an hour behind on the shoot time. And I was
Inevitably,
like,
yeah.
we got to start because we've only got 2 days to do this. And I just took over. I just jumped in and did it myself, which was nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it's weird when you're the lead actor and you're forced into doing directing, so you're kind of directing yourself, which is kind of strange.
It's difficult to maintain that objectivity somewhere along the line.
Yeah, precisely.
You kind of want to go and have a look at the screen to see what the take was like, but then you're going to scare yourself by seeing yourself
Precisely.
on screen.
That's the last thing you want to do.
Do I look to see if it was
yourself.
good, bad, or indifferent because I'm going to be frightened or whatever? And I think of everything I've done, I've done more than one job on a set before now, but I think the directing and acting thing is something I've never really done.
No.
And that's just purely because of the whole fear factor.
Oh yeah, no, it's terrifying. But when you're chucked into it in the deep end and you don't have a choice.
True.
Wow. My God. But yeah, no, it turned out really well. 4 film festivals later, I did a good job apparently.
Absolutely. So given a choice between just those 2 jobs, which would you prefer to do if you could just do one full time?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, I still enjoy being in front of the camera, but to be brutally honest with myself, I do work better behind the camera, so probably direct.
Do you think that's just in terms of, I think, the stuff that you've directed has all been stuff you've written?
That's true.
So it's all in your head in the first place, whereas if I said, here's some utter madness where we slaughter babies or whatever, I mean, this is just going on your particular subject matter as opposed to the things that I write, the nice flowers and happiness and everybody's all sexy and wonderful world. The things that I write about obviously aren't bleak at all.
Of course.
Would you take that on? Would you be the director for hire kind of thing? I'm thinking specifically of the boxing movie we did.
Oh yes.
Pound for Pound, which I got fired from, which is my first ever job as just purely a director for hire. And
you forget that I was also hired as director for that same person.
True, very.
And I was also fired from that.
We're not mentioning any names here at all. Steve, we'll call you.
Steve. But yeah, I was also hired to be a director on that person's short film. And although I thought I did quite a good job, considering I also had to produce it and get all the crew and also hire out the other actors in it, I thought I did a fantastic job given the time frame I was given. But as John said, this particular person just not happy of anything that we came out with, either of us on either film.
Well, this is true, and I mean to an extent I can agree with his points because I think the reason I got fired formally or informally after doing
definitely informally,
2 edits, definitely informally. He said to me, obviously, this guy was producing and he was also the lead actor, and I kind of, as a director, I got the feeling that he didn't understand the story at all. So whatever the character he was playing was from an entirely different movie. So occasionally he'd spring to life and deliver dialogue from this movie that he imagined was in another movie that made him look a certain way. And the rest of the time he was just kind of dead-eyed staring into space, phoning him some dialogue until he could do the rest of the bits that he thought were good. And I'm thinking, we've had 2 months to develop this, mate, and all the story. When I rewrote the script, which was all originally exposition, and when we sat down over coffee and we discussed the minutiae of the character and and you nodded at me blankly, I'll admit, and stuff like that, I kind of half thought that you were either agreeing with me or you at least understood, but you didn't disagree with anything I said.
Of course, we wasn't listening.
Well, true. And then again in rehearsals, when we had a couple of days rehearsal, when we were blocking things, when we were out on location in the boxing gym, looking at camera angles, looking at the way we were going to do things there, and you didn't raise any of the points that you later raised, that made me suspect that you knew vaguely what you were doing, because I had worked with Steve once before, but that was under strange circumstances where I'd been working on a little film about Alzheimer's awareness, and at the end of the shoot we had day 3, we finished the day early. And the girl who was producing said, well, I want to do some stuff for my show reel. And she brought Steve in as an actor to work with the show reel opposite her. At which point all the crew disappeared. There was just the man with the stick and the DOP and the first AC and a focus puller. So there was nobody really directing what was going on. So they were kind of wandering around in the woods, spouting whatever lines and stuff like that. So I took control. I was kind of like, well, there's a chance to go and direct and do my thing and stuff like that. I remember we did the first couple of takes early evening at the end of day 2, and then day 3, all sitting around having breakfast, a really lovely breakfast the next morning, and realising everybody's so calm today, and it's wonderful. And through my 3rd bit of beans on toast and my 9th cup of coffee and 18th cigarette of the day or whatever, and realising everybody thinks I'm the director, and they're now waiting for me to tell them what to do. So it was a case of, okay, yeah, everybody just give me 5 minutes. If you want to set the camera up, I'll just take the actors out on set and we'll start rehearsing now and stuff like that. So that went fairly well. I mean, it wasn't amazing and things like that, but it was nowhere near as...
No drama.
I wouldn't say the drama. Yeah, it was the backlash. It was the trauma, Really, I've kind of been on set. I remember saying to Imogen, the makeup lady on the boxing film, after we've
She
done
was lovely.
After Ims is great, yeah. Big shout out to Imogen Smart
Yes,
Steel.
Imogen.
Woo woo.
Woo.
I remember saying to her outside when I was having a cigarette after we'd done the first setup, I have no ideas how to direct this movie. Just purely because there's nothing coming back to the camera from whatever I said, whatever we blocked, whatever we rehearsed. And
I know, I was there.
the cameraman's looking at me with a panic in his eyes, and he's a great DOP, I mean, Mario,
he was.
God
Mario
bless
was
you, mate.
brilliant.
You're the business, mate, and I look forward to working with you a whole lot of times again at some point. So there was just this general suppressed panic because we only had 5 hours to shoot before all the pro boxers were going to come in and start beating us up because they wanted to train
They wanted the room back.
all the rest of it and all that kind of stuff. But I think what got me most was talking afterwards. I showed the film round to people I trust, people I don't necessarily trust, but people whose opinions, either actors wise or filmmaker wise and stuff like that, means something to me. And the general opinion I got back was, I've no ideas if the film's any good. I've no ideas if the story's any good because that actor's just so awful. So that they couldn't see beyond that. Now, when I got fired, his excuse for firing me wasn't anything to do with the story or the plot. He just said to me, I'm pretty positive that I did some amazing acting in this film.
I got exactly the same comments when I did
And you haven't put any
him.
of it in the film. Now, with me thinking, well, if the acting was that amazing, then would I sabotage the film that my name's on? Would I?
Well, obviously the camera wasn't rolling when he was doing those fantastic things.
Well, maybe he was in bed a week before doing those amazing things in his head, and none of that actually, happened before the cameras. Because trust me, I eked out every single frame that there was any animation at all in your eyes or in your body or in the scenes. It was two brothers in a boxing gym, and they were actually brothers, and it looked like they'd never met.
I got to give it to the brother because he was really good.
He was trying, bless him. He
was really trying.
The guy was an extra who hadn't really done any.
I think they're both extras when they.
Well, this is the problem. Steve was an extra who thought that being an extra means you were an actor.
Yeah, no.
I remember years ago, one of the first jobs I did was an extra on Prince of Thieves, and I was talking to a guy, and he said, "I've just finished doing Hamlet." I said, well, which part in Hamlet did you play? And he said, well, if you look at the Mel Gibson Hamlet, in scene 39, at 41 minutes and 18 seconds, I'm the guy with blonde hair wandering around in the background. And I'm thinking, well, there's, he was still proud because he still had his Hamlet hair. And I'm like, what on earth are you talking about, you lunatic? I've just graduated college, and even I realised that, this is a piece of furniture roll. This is... the grass that we're walking on probably costs more to hire a day than we do.
I know. I've worked with so many extras who think that they're actors and they don't realise that extra work is not acting. I mean, yeah, it's acting in a way that you're in front of the camera, but you're not doing anything meaningful in front of the camera.
You're not carrying the plot. You're not adding to the story. Exactly.
You're not really doing much. I mean, yeah, you've been directed to do things, but the way I see it, if you don't have any dialogue, even one word, that's an extra.
Fair play. So how do you spot, when you're starting out as a director, when you're casting actors, how do you separate out the men from the boys, the sheep from the sheep in lamb's clothing, whatever you want to call it? How do you separate the extras out from the actors? How do you know the difference?
I don't know. It's just intuition, really, to me, because I seem to have a natural talent to spot these people out.
Good.
There's a particular course that I used to go on, but they invite back the old actors to see what the new talent has to offer. And I would sit there going, yep, he's good, she's good. Oh my God, no. I went to one a few weeks ago, and they were literally there were 18 of them, all doing scenes in pairs up on stage in front of us. And I was sitting there, hand on my chin, going, really studying them, as I usually do with actors in theatre. I don't know why I do it. I just sit there and really study them, especially if it's actors.
Which is not frightening at all when you're on stage.
Oh no,
just
not
leaning
at all.
there, just intently reading the script while they're staring at you, and no pressure at all.
Not at all. I mean, if you're an actor on stage, you don't really notice that one particular person who's really staring at them. You just kind of, I don't know, you imagine everyone naked or whatever, whatever they tell you to do
most of the time because the lights are in your eyes. Yeah.
But particularly, there was 18 of them on stage, and there was probably 5 or 6 I pinpointed like they're spot on. And I went to talk to them afterwards. I gave them my card. I'm like, I'm not bigging myself up. I'm a director, producer, writer person. Some of them were like, yeah, great. And there was a couple who was like, yeah, whatever. And since then, it was only 5 I gave my card to. Only 3 of them actually come back to me. So, I will consider them for future projects, and I'm hoping in the future, touch wood, I'll be able to pay people, because at the moment, just starting out, it's all been unpaid.
Such is the joy of it.
I know, that's the way it is. That's just the way this industry works. I'm hoping, touch wood again, that the next one I'm able to get funding for. So, yes, that'll be an LGBT project called Closeted, so watch out for that. Again, my projects have been accepted into film festivals, so I'm obviously doing something right. I don't know what it is, but I'm doing something right.
Don't question it, mate.
I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to keep doing my thing. And I'm helping other people with their projects. I mean, the whole of next week, we're filming a web series, 2 web series, if that's even a word, web series I.
Series I. I like it.
Series
We'll
I.
go with that one. Yeah.
We'll
web
go with
series
that.
I.
We're recording a couple of web series I next week, and I'm just helping out with that. And hopefully it's going to go somewhere. One of the web series has been accepted into 3 film festivals, which is amazing. Devon, it's called, and is also on Amazon Prime, as are my films. So as well as YouTube, of course, for those that don't have Amazon Prime. But just the fact that we've managed to get on Prime is just a massive achievement, let alone being in film festivals. Being in film festivals is fantastic. To get onto a mainstream international streaming service is like, that's not YouTube. It's like, oh, wow, I think.
Absolutely, mate. It's kind of testament to the amount of graft that you're willing to put in.
No, precisely. Put in the work, then, your rewards will be reaped eventually. So, kind of my advice out there to anyone starting out is just, my motto is do it, don't quit.
Absolutely, but I think it's doing the work in the right way. If I can just drag back, we both worked on a film that was kind of based around the Battle of the Somme.
The
Battle of the Somme. This is a recurring theme. This is something we'll come back to. Completely lost my train of thought.
The Battle of the Somme.
Oh yeah, sorry, the Battle of the Somme. And people were paid for that one. Some people were paid for that one. Some of us negotiated a fee, I think, somewhere along the line. And 2 things, just to go back to what we were talking about. I remember doing the castings for that one, and the trying to explain to the director the difference between an actor and an extra. We had a guy came in, really well built, quite a good looking guy, and he said, "Yeah, I'm working out at the moment. I'm about to play the lead in this superhero movie."
I know who you're talking about.
And he rambled on and on and on, and the director was quite taken by this guy, quite impressed by what the guy was talking about. And then he shot himself in the foot for me. He said, we're shooting out in Tunisia, and it's going to be amazing and stuff like that. All we need is the script and some financing. And he left it at that, and wandered away. And when it came to acting, he was one of these read by numbers. He'd learnt the lines, and he wasn't particularly good as the character. And then we directed him, and he looked a bit dead-eyed and gave exactly the same reading again. So you tell him the same directions again with different words, and he comes back with exactly the same performance again. So I'm thinking, well, okay, this guy's nowhere. So as he walked out of the room, the director said to me, he was really good, and look, he must be good because he's playing the lead in a feature. And I said, well, we're all making a feature in Tunisia. All we need is the funding and the script. So I think that's part of it's this smokescreen of belief. Yes, we can all do that and stuff like that, but I think, you particularly are more honest about where you're at. And that's, I think probably that's why we're friends, because I'm brutally honest about pretty much everything that's going on.
Brutal's not the word.
If it's nonsense, I'll try and break it gently to you that it's nonsense, but I will tell you that it's nonsense. Well,
it just smacks me in the face.
Nobody's been punched too hard yet.
Not yet.
There's been no deaths on set.
It hasn't been that bad yet.
It's been okay. But I also think you talk about when you said you want to raise money to make the film Closeted because you haven't paid anybody yet. Well, there's different ways. This is something I've talked to a friend of mine about recently. There's different ways of paying people. I'm thinking about the whatever it was, day 2 or 3 when we were shooting on Mist, and we turned up at your house at midday. Because that was on about the occasion.
There's the bar, just drop yourself.
Exactly, to be meted. I think there was 7 or 8 of us on the crew. Some of us were doubling up. There was 2 actors, 2 lead actors, and a couple of us were, or 3 actors, and there was a couple of us doubling up. And Sam's opening salvo was, there's 2 kegs of beer, there's a fridge full of beer, and as much bourbon as you can drink. And bless everybody on set that day. It was midday probably on a Sunday.
It was a Sunday.
And everybody kind of looked for a moment and looked around the room a little self-consciously, and it was, well, maybe just a small one. And having edited it, by the time we got to 9 o'clock at night, I'd say we got all the scenes. There was no fighting on set, there was whatever, but by 10 o'clock at night, I'm looking at the clapperboard and things. The clapperboard's utterly incomprehensible. There's people screaming hysterically with laughter in the background of takes for no reasons at all. The camera will pan round to a character and there's somebody standing holding a lamp, just watching the action going on, utterly unaware, absorbed by the filmmaking process, utterly unaware that they're in shot and nobody else has forgotten to tell them to move or whatever. So that was great, but that was one of the most joyous days of filmmaking I've ever had, compounded by my final image of that day is sitting on the tube with the lead actor, one of the lesser actors in it, who shall remain nameless, sitting on the last tube home, who after 2 stops announced he needed to pee, but couldn't get off the tube because he didn't want to walk home, just opening the door, leaning against the door of the tube against the other door side, relieving himself, and then sitting back down as we cracked open a bottle of Jack Daniels that we had on the tube to carry on drinking to bring us back to the east of London and stuff like that. So that was one of the most joyous, mad days kind of ever.
And that Jack Daniels came from my bar.
It did.
Somebody stole it.
It did. No,
I know exactly who you're talking about.
I think that was one that, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
That was one that was Steve. It was a different Steve.
A different Steve. We'll call him Steve.
Yeah. Steve's the all-covering name.
The generic
but I think
name
so. When you say you don't pay people, I think that's not necessarily true. You're like me. You're working on other people's films for free.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's not a case of I can't afford to pay you cash. But if I give you a couple of days on my film, then come and do a couple of days on mine, and I think that's the best way of working things. That
yeah, I mean,
whole
absolutely.
quid pro quo.
I've worked on a few short films and on a few other things, which have been great experience, but you don't hear from them again, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm not that kind of person. I'm the sort of person who will blimmin' stick out with you if you want me to hang around like a bad smell. I will help you non-end. For example, I've helped John out on a few films as well after he's worked with me. A lot of the actors,
including ones where I got fired.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I was also there. I was there when it happened. There are
banging your head against the floor. I should have taken it as a sign.
Banging your head against a brick wall. Yeah, I should have noticed. There have been a lot of actors who've worked for me in the past. Again, no names mentioned, but who have been in theatre productions. And, they've kind of told me about it, and I've always made the effort to go, no matter how far it is, East London, North London. I think I went to somewhere down in Southampton once just to go and see them do their theatre thing, which,
Any more than 4 tube stops, then...
Oh, yeah, anything out of Zone 6, you won't go.
Unless they send me a limo, I'm done, mate. I'm going nowhere.
Yeah. You can send me the bus fare. But no, it's the whole hashtag actors supporting actors thing. If they give you... If somebody gives me their time, I will try and give back my time tenfold, because you really helped me do this thing, and I will try and help you in any way I can to do this other thing. Another example of that is a photographer I started working with.
Steve the photographer.
Steve the photographer.
Bertie, we're talking about
you're talking about that. AlistairSellsPhotography.org. There you go, you got a plug. It was weird because I am a member of the International Moving Images Society, which they go by the name of IMIS, or the British, I don't know what the actual name is, the British Telekinetic
it's
something
the equivalent
society.
Of the CIA.
Yeah, pretty much. CIA. It's all very secretive. But every now and then they do courses which are free for members, which is fantastic because they also have free booze.
Perfect.
Ka-ching. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much the only reason why I go. But they do fantastic courses.
I'd like to point out at this point that Sam and I are both teetotal.
Yeah, we've not had any drink at all. We're completely sober. So, there's a photographer there who I met on the first day. I got chatting to the CEO and the secretary to the CEO and the photographer on the first ever time I went to one of their things when I actually paid for. And then from there I paid up membership, and now every time I go for free. But the CEO, weirdly enough, on the first time I met him, he turned around to me. He actually approached me and said, "I've seen your face before, I don't know where, but I know you," and shook my hand. I was like, I really don't recall your face.
Fair play.
Yes, okay, thank you. And from then on, it's kind of given me the confidence to join them. I don't know if he does that all to everyone just to get them to sign up. Probably, but
it's a good sales tactic.
It's a very good sales tactic, but it's actually worked. But it's probably the 6th course I went on. I walked in as usual, said hi to the photographer and said hi to the secretary who was there, who were taking the names as people came in. And then the photographer kind of cornered me and he said, I heard you're doing a short film. I was like, where did you hear that? I just heard it on the grapevine. But would you mind?
Steve told me.
Steve told me that. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's weird for a start. You know, I'm doing a short film. Yet I've never talked about it in this atmosphere, in this group. And he said, can I just be part of it just to get experience? I'm like, yeah, come on board, no problem. So he came in for every single day of the shoot. Good old Bertie, love you.
Yeah.
He was taking behind the scenes photographs, and he did actors' headshots for me, which was fantastic because I actually had something to motivate the cast to show up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I only had one person drop out on me on Mist, which was my latest film that Bertie came on to work with us on, whereas Duncan, which was my comedy short film where John had a part in because somebody dropped out on me very last second. I had 3 actors drop out on me, which was annoying, including the lead actor. So I was really struggling because it was only my second short film I had done. For the lead to drop out on you after months of him saying, yeah, I'll do it, was really annoying. But, you know, somebody jumped in at the last minute, which was fantastic. But going back to Bertie, yeah, he actually showed up for all 5 days of filming. He did fantastic job. He did actors' headshots. He did behind-the-scenes photos. And everyone just kind of fell in love with him. And I turned around to him. I said, I will help you no matter what. And, you know, there was one day we showed up. We met up in the pub in London. And I sat down with him. And I brutally, honestly went through his website. And went through his business model. Because I've got a 5-year master's in business admin, which I never used in my life. So I was sitting there with my business head on, talking to him about how we can improve. And I was like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. And he was sitting there staring at me, and the rage in his eyes just looked like he wanted to punch me one. But at the same time, he kind of...
We've all been there, mate. I'm sorry to break it to you.
I know.
That's why we drink so much on your sets.
That's why we drink so much, because everyone will love me by the 3rd drink.
Well, it's not even that. Once you've had 3 or 4 drinks, you've got an excuse to throw a punch. You know, this is England after all.
No, precisely. So. We can't have a fish fight without...
Well, you can't have a drink without a fight, you know. It is obligatory.
It's a British thing. But yeah, we were sitting in the pub, we were drinking, and I was brutally tearing into his business plan. And, you know, the day after, he messaged me, he's like, you were really putting me down. I was like, yeah, but it's for your own good. And he was like, yeah, I know. So he did my suggestions, and his business has picked up. He has now got his own studio as opposed to running out of his flat.
Fair play.
Which I've been to a couple of times, which is just fantastic. It's properly I've given him equipment that I have actually mistakenly bought for film, which I didn't realise was actually for stills photography.
Fair play. Well, it's the Gumtree collection.
No, precisely.
That everybody's got at least 14 cupboards full if they're at least a half-serious filmmaker.
No, in fact, I got to get rid of it. But I actually just gave it to him. He offered to pay, but I was just like, just buy me a few drinks. We're square. Which he's using in his studio, which is fantastic. But yeah, his business has picked up and he's actually doing well. And now I'm actually helping him to get him onto become Spotlight accredited, which means that when actors put his photos on Spotlight, it will actually be recognised as opposed to now where he's not recognised
and he can raise his rates.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. And for all the actors who helped me out on Unmissed, we actually negotiated a 50% discount for everyone. So, you know, instead of paying 150 quid for a full-on session, they're paying 75 for an hour's session with makeup and editing and whatnot, and all that malarkey. So for the actors, it's actually fantastic. For me, as a business partner, he is really good. He knows what he's doing. He's focused. He knows exactly what he's doing. So it works for both him and myself. I'm helping him get more business. He's helping me improve my business acumen with my actors and crew. So it works both ways. And yeah, it's going well, I think.
It seems that way, but it's also, you know, without sounding egotistical, if you can lend somebody that help and they take their help on board, then it gives you more confidence as a person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, if you cast an actor who's an extra and he doesn't come good, then you're kind of like, well, okay, you know, that was the wrong thing to do. Or you can bring somebody good and say, well, there was something I saw in him that wasn't such and such. You know, having cast that film, even though, you know, I was nominally a co-producer on the film, even though most of the time I was sound or first AD because it all fell apart or whatever. I've met about 3 or 4 actors that we saw for those roles who didn't get the parts on other movies who've been like, why didn't I get that part? And I'm like, I'm the sound man, mate. It wasn't my fault, kind of thing. So it's a small industry and stuff like that. And I think when I was starting out as an actor, I didn't know anybody. I don't come from an acting background. I don't come from a theatrical background at all. And when you first tell people you're an actor and you get past the inevitable, oh, well, what have I seen you in? And, well, nothing, which makes you feel like nobody. And, that's never, ever going to go away because nobody, apart from other actors, understand the industry in that way. If anybody offered me any words of advice or any words of encouragement or even just took seriously the fact that I was an actor, that meant a lot to me. That was a really big thing. And I've always felt now, not that I'm not Harvey Weinstein, I'm not running a Hollywood studio or whatever, but if I'm a couple of rungs up the ladder 30 years on, then I've wasted my entire life. I should be far, far further than I am in the industry and stuff like that. But anyway, the reasons for that will emerge over the next however many podcasts we do until I'm really drunk and crying in a corner, confessing all my failures. But I think, you're almost, as a person, you should be duty bound to give people who are starting out, that encouragement, even if they're nowhere, even if, they're kind of pointing at a camera at the sky with the lens cap still on, trying to shoot a headshot, then you should be like, well, okay, don't you think the sky's a bit bright? Maybe you want to turn your ISO down a bit, and then let them figure out that the lens cap's still on or whatever, I think that's a good thing. And again, coming back to this idea where you're saying you don't pay people, I think there's different levels of payment. Paying back in time is one thing, and I found I'm a sucker for, okay, quid pro quo, let's do it this way and I'll work for free. And then when it comes to the other person's time, 99 times out of 100 they're like, oh no, really, I'm too busy, or I want to do this, or I want to get paid. And it's such a disappointment when people do that. It's kind of, sometimes you've had things riding on it, and sometimes it's kind of like, well, okay, there's plenty more fish in the sea, I can go and play again and all that kind of stuff. But I think that there's different levels of payments, and I was talking to somebody about this recently, trying to give somebody advice online in some forum which I probably shouldn't have been in at all, but saying, for example, if you're going to come along and be an actor for me, and the going rate per day is whatever equity minimum is, and stuff like that. Now, I can't afford to pay you anywhere near that. That's probably my budget for 5 days of shooting, catering, drinks afterwards, the party, and my rent for that month. You know what I mean? So I can't do that. Now, if I say to you, well, okay, I'll give you 20 quid's worth of expenses, 20 quid's going to get swallowed up somewhere along the line. Whereas if I say to you, okay, I'll give you a fiver, because that's going to pay for your tube fare in the morning, because you obviously live in outer space compared to where I live. And trust me, never work for Sam unless you're prepared to do air travel, helicopter travel, abseiling, goat trekking, yak herding, and whatever to get out to the far-flung locations that Sam finds. And then you say to them, well, okay, for lunch, what do you want for lunch? And then, spend the 20 quid, spend half of that, whatever's left on lunch. And then at the end of the day, rather than say, well, here's the tube back, get them an Uber home. So I feel that, 20 quid goes nowhere when it's in your pocket. You don't feel it at all. Whereas if you're on set and you think, well, the catering was good, everybody was really nice, and at the end of the day, when I was knackered, they looked after me. They bundled me into a cab and sent me home so I could sleep all the way home, So you feel like you're not saying to the person, you're worth 20 quid because that's all I can afford. It's like, I can't pay you anything, but I'm going to give you some of the perks that show that I appreciate the work that you're doing and what you're worth as a person, as an actor, what your time is worth to me and stuff. And I think that's a much more creative and a much smarter way of spending things.
Oh, yeah.
You send your actor home in an Uber, he's going to be half an hour, 45 minutes fresher, or she's going to be, an hour happier, because they've had an extra hour's sleep when they wake up in the morning and all that kind of stuff. Now, it can backfire when people say, well, you sent me home in an Uber yesterday, we'll send me home in one today. And, okay, but this, I think there's much smarter ways of doing things to make your production look and feel like it punches far above its weight than it necessarily does. Now, I would say a lot of people make the mistake of thinking, we've hired an Alexa Mini. So I've got, £5,000 worth of budget, and I spent 4,500 of it hiring a camera, a box of prime lenses the size of Africa, when really you're only going to use 3 prime lenses because you don't really know what you're doing, and you've listened to the DOP who's run manic and mad. You haven't remembered sound, you haven't remembered catering, you haven't remembered that people need to, actually get there and back on the day. And I think that's a trap that people fall into and stuff like that. So, we're going to do, the idea of doing these podcasts is to lead on ultimately to some stuff on YouTube. We're talking about exactly these kind of minutiae of, why do you need a first AD on set? Well, nobody needs a first AD because he just shouts or sits in the corner or ticks things off. Well, a good first AD can save you 2 hours a day. Now, if a good first AD is saving you 2 hours a day and you're an hour over, fine, you've still got an hour to shoot those extra takes or all this kind of thing. That's something we'll talk about in future and things like that. But I think you're very aware, and I don't know whether it's you as a person or you as a filmmaker or whether it's down to having an MBA, you're very aware of the whole side issues that go into running, to how people tick and what people want and what people need when they're on set, And I think that's a rare thing, Now whether this is no slight on you, whether and I'd say the same about me, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent as an actor, the people skills that go into working a set will get you a long, long way down the line.
Definitely.
More than just being a pretty boy or, somebody with a nice figure and big boobs, whatever it is that's going to get you jobs as an actor. That's a finite thing. Whereas being perceived as a bloke who's not a dick on set, there's the great quote I always give to people. I sat down with a friend of mine years ago who's an actor. We've done a dozen films together, directed him, he's directed me, we've done a bunch of stuff. And we were sitting around late one night in his flat and said, well, if somebody said to you, what's the best thing, the greatest thing about filmmaking, the greatest piece of advice, if somebody said to you, I want to be a filmmaker, what's the best piece of advice you could give them? And I rambled some old cobblers off the top of my head, it'd change hour to hour, day to day, it'd probably be a big rant about Steve now, or, whatever it was, that was on my mind that day. And he sat down very, very thoughtful, and he's a very, very bright man, and he said, on every single film set that you go on, there's always one person who's a complete div. Now, if you go on the film set and look around and you can't find that person, it's you. So I took that, that's, it's funny, but it's also true, and
it is very true.
I just kind of took that on board and just said, just go and make sure that find the div on set, and if you can't, then find the person who could be the div and just raise your game a little bit above him. So you only have to be on the second rung of the ladder, not the bottom rung of the ladder, and people are going to perceive you as being a half decent bloke. So. Yeah. I've taken that to heart, and hopefully I'm not too much of a div. I know when to mess about and I know when to shut up and get on with the work.
Precisely.
And all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, somebody told me once, it's just, one, be yourself, and two, stay humble. As soon as you start becoming, even if I'm a director, I will sometimes lose it and just get angry, but then I just can't pull myself back. It's like, actually, I'm really sorry, but can you just do it this way? Can you do it that way? So as long as you're not, excuse my French, a dick. Yeah. As long as you're not a complete twat on set. I have known directors who have just been absolute twonks on set, and people just start to get fed up. So that's the last thing you want to do, is your actors, your crew, just to be absolutely sick and tired of being there. So as long as the director can keep hold of himself, of his composure or her composure, and keep everyone relatively happy. Like for me, like, you're feeling a bit, have a drink.
Fair play.
Have another drink or get some food. I never skimp on the catering, as John knows.
Very true.
And everyone who's worked with me, I always over cater. It's ridiculous. And for those who've been on my premieres, I always over cater with the.
You need
always
to
over cater.
You need to eat something to soak up the booze.
Oh no, of course, it's always free flowing food. And the last one I did was open bar. People they didn't abuse it, but the bill I got at the end was a bit high. But
I would have abused it, but unfortunately,
I'm sure you wasn't there, unfortunately. But we did have an open bar, and we did have a few bottles of wine spare afterwards, which some people did stay behind and finish off. That's the spirit. And I just gave it to them. But yeah, no, you have to stay humble on set and just don't be the twat. As a director, you're in charge, but don't be that twat. Don't
abuse the situation. See, it's strange. Our styles are very, very different. With that sound like I'm criticising, there's times when I've been first ADing for you, and you know that I'm not afraid to shout.
I know, you kind of just take over, and I'm just like...
Sergeant Major my way through, and... True, yeah, and to be honest, the difference between Duncan and on Mist was a lot of the time I backed off and tried not to take over, but it was kind of, I can see that the room's going to... We're losing focus a little bit and stuff like that. And maybe you'd have let it slide longer than I was, whereas I was like, we need to finish now, we need to do this, because I want us to finish at 10 o'clock and not, 4 in the morning or whatever and stuff like that. So, if I'm on a line, fine. And I say to you, you're too nice, whereas...
I am too nice.
Whereas the opposite being the first time my brother ever worked for me on the first short I ever finished, he'd never seen me on set before, and he came along to first AD for me. He didn't really have any film experience or whatever. And he said to me two things. Firstly, you over-prepare. The amount of paperwork that goes into one of my productions.
Oh my God, the amount of paperwork I do, and it never comes out when I start filming.
Yeah. Storyboards and all
the
rest of it.
Storyboarding never came out on Mist.
Exactly, yeah.
I had it all drawn out, all hand drawn. I had it scanned in. I had it all printed off, and it was all there in the folder, but it never came out. But the folder.
Was that down to organically? The way it kind of was it down to organically? It was moving the way you wanted it to anyway.
Yeah.
Was it because you were in front of the camera and I was taking over behind the camera, or was it because you weren't, you were too nice to say, everybody shut up, this needs to be a close-up now?
No, because the way it just organically happened, cameramen, shall I say, Josh and Marcus, they, I don't know if I sent them my storyboarding. I've sent them all my shot list. I sent them everything, and whether they looked at it or not, but they just seemed to know what to do.
Fair play.
And the shots, and I was looking on the monitor, were just, yeah, that works. I can't argue with it. I can't really say anything because it just works. And I don't think I would have been able to say anything to make it better. And I think the way it's come out, it's just the final edit. It's just, yeah, I don't think I could have made it any better.
I think of all the stuff that you've done, then this one, Unmissed, definitely punches above its weight, and it's more cinematic.
Oh yeah, for sure,
by a long way.
For sure.
Yeah,
it gets better when experienced, doesn't it?
It does, but I remember talking to Josh, who did most of the DOPing on it, and then saying, well, what have you done before? The usual chit chat over whatever. And he said he hadn't really done anything.
Hadn't done
this
anything.
Was the first. Well, he's definitely got an eye for the shot. There's a story I remember. I remember who the actor was. He said he was talking to a famous DOP called Conrad Hall, whose son's now also a famous DOP. Conrad Hall shot a ton of stuff before he died. I mean, from the 50s onwards, I think. He was a big Hollywood DOP. And he said to him, where do you know how to put the camera? How do you know where to put the camera? And his response was, I just put the camera. I point the camera at the story. Now that's some Yoda stuff right there.
Precisely.
You know what I mean? Now, okay, well, what's the story? Well, if you've done all your preparation, you've done all the storyboards. We're going to get into a pet peeve of mine here. I hate people who will shoot the wide shot, then they shoot the over the shoulder, then they shoot the close-ups, then they shoot the two-shot, then they shoot the drone shot, and then they shoot the... So all of a sudden, you're not shooting footage anymore. You're just shooting coverage of every single angle you can think of, and as an actor, that's exhausting.
It is.
But it also, it's a plight of the video age. When you were shooting on film, it was so expensive, and you had so little...
Precisely.
Actual time for the camera to be turning over.
Yeah. And
you knew this is a two-shot. This is a close.
Actual film, you had to cut up, and back then it was
exactly. So the language of film, without being too pretentious, has been utterly lost. And I think part of that's YouTube, part of that's TV. Here's 15 shots in 3 seconds. And all that kind of stuff, where I wish now on video, people will pay more attention to that, because while you're spending, and again, this is going back to being a good first AD, if you go back and say, we're never going to use that shot. So while this actor's over here looking amazing in close-up, let's do 2 more shots of this amazing close-up so they absolutely nail it 1,000% in terms of performance. And I think lots of people sacrifice performance. It's kind of,
for sure.
Oh, we've only got 3 or 4 takes of this. Well, I'll hammer it into the ground, because the most interesting thing in a film isn't explosions. It's not special effects. It's not, kind of whatever. It's people.
Yeah.
The people are telling the story and stuff like that. So, yeah, exactly.
It's told in the eyes. I mean, if they're not even saying anything, you can tell it in their eyes. It's like, or in their face. It's just like, wow. I was on a feature film recently, I was just there for some reason, because I helped.
Just randomly snuck in through a back door,
showed up
with a bottle of vodka in each hand and say, anybody got any ice?
Can I just be here? I was a film that I was asked to do a bit of work on as an actor. I only had about 3 or 4 lines, but these guys who were filming it weren't experienced at all. It was their first thing that they had made, and they called all the actors in at exactly the same time, even though they didn't need them for 3 or 4 hours, which is a massive mistake. Massive mistake. You don't call the actors in at the same time. But I was just sitting there behind the camera, and there was this scene where the son was with the mother, and the mother was emotional because the son had just lost his daughter or something, and she was trying to support him. Now the actor, because he was trying to fill in some time with the whole film, because it was a filler scene, he was just rambling on and on and on and on. The mother was doing absolutely perfect. First ever time she'd done acting. Lovely lady. Absolutely perfect every time. She was doing the whole thing, giving the consoling him. And even though I was there just to be there as an actor, I turned around to the director. I was like, can he shut up? Just tell him to shut up.
Yeah.
Don't say a word. Let her do her thing. And it was literally probably a minute and a half of a scene of him just sitting there, hand in head, crying, and she was doing her lines, doing exactly what she was doing the whole time, and it brought both the director and I to tears. Even the cameraman was starting to well up, whereas before, when he was rambling on, it was just like, shut up.
Absolutely.
So it just helps. I mean, that was the thing with Yellow Leaves, the first thing that John and I met on. The director at the time, Max, he turned around to me during the Met Film School, because we'd just both finished a course there. Different courses. He'd done a directing course, I'd done an acting course. He turned around to me and said, I want you to audition for my short film. I was like, yeah, cool, give me the script. Because Max was from a foreign country, the way he wrote the script wasn't, I won't say perfect English. I'm not going to say my English is perfect, but the way he wrote it was like a foreign English.
It wasn't the way you would speak.
Precisely.
You've got to take the script and make it your own. You've got to make it your voice or whatever. Yeah.
So this being the first lead role that I had auditioned for, I had done other short films before, but I was just 1 or 2 lines, so I didn't really care. But this one, I kind of actually rewrote the whole script.
Yeah.
And also I did 2 pages of preparation for the character. So I kind of gave him back the script, and he was like, okay, my English is no good then. So he kind of rewrote the script according to my notes. And he looked at my notes for the character, and he was like, oh my God, you've given this character a persona, you've given him a surname, you've given him a backstory. And I'm like, well, yeah, I've kind of just done a 2-year acting course, which kind of taught me to do all this. Yeah. But because I've really fallen in love with this script, I just want to make it perfect. So then he still had like, I think 4 or 5 other actors he auditioned for that same scene, for the same lead role. And I went in first, I did my thing, and he was like, knowing that how much work I'd put into it beforehand, he was like, yeah, great. So I went off, but saw the other actors in the waiting room, and I was just like, yeah, good luck, being nice. And they were just like, mm. But within probably a couple of hours, I was probably just getting home off the train, he rung me and he was like, I knew you were it. I knew you were Adam. You got it. And I was like, oh, really? And I was just over the moon and all that.
Because of the pub and celebrate.
Yeah, properly celebrating. So I went home and had a drink. As you do. But no, on set, I was... on set, on rehearsals. We had 1-day rehearsals back at the Met Film School. And he was really struggling. He's like, we've got to give your character a twitch. We've got to give him a twitch. So he was trying all these things. And I was like, just leave it with me. I'll just show up with something. So I'd seen this video online where I'd seen this autistic kid he's always holding onto something with the backpack or his collar of his shirt, and he's always fiddling. So I showed up and started doing that on set. Unfortunately, I also started doing that as a habit for about 2 months after shoot because I'd been so used to doing it. Yeah. And I was just constantly... I can't describe it on a podcast, but I was just sort of
watch the film online. Watch
the film and on Amazon Prime. Yellow Leaves or SamAct Produced, or Sammy Simmons on YouTube is on there as well. But I was just doing this thing with my hands the whole time, and the first shot that we did was outside the house. So it was me walking down the street into the front door, which was one of the last scenes. And he just turned around to me. He's like, "What were you doing with your hand?" Like, well, that's my twitch, that's my thing. He's like, it's fantastic, mate, just keep doing that. And I was like, yes. So I was doing it the whole time, and like I said, for 2 months afterwards I was doing it still because I was just so used to it. But I've had so many comments about it, and people were like, I thought you were really autistic, or some other people were like, I really felt that character, as in, it was so emotional, and the way you portrayed it was so respectful for people with that spectrum. So that just proves the amount of research that you do into a character. No matter how small the role, or if it's a lead role, if you get it, you have to put 110% effort into it, no matter what role it is. Like I said, whether it's a minor role, lead role, you just have to put it in there, and then you will get recognised for it. And that film has just been accepted into its first film festival because I put it in there, because I was proud of that performance. And
fair play. No, it was. I think probably. Going all the way back to the beginning of this whole podcast, when I said to you, when I first met you, I thought you were quite a sweet, gentle-natured guy, and then you suddenly hand me this baby,
got to know me.
this baby-killing slaughter of a madness would disturb you. So maybe part of me was necessarily fooled by the character that you're playing, but
I was that good, obviously.
Not necessarily a case of, yes, you were good in the movie, but in between takes you were still very quiet, and I don't know whether that was you. Because it was your first lead role, you were
I was on a proper
staying
film
with
set.
it inside your head and all that kind of stuff, and I'm out there being a Sam and dicking around with the rest of the students because, I've got absolutely nothing to lose and nothing at stake. Just point my stick and, talk a bit, and off you go.
The rest of my life, that was.
Fair play, mate. Fair play.
I'm still pushing it out there, even though the director's kind of not giving up on it. He's just like, that's it, I'm going to move on. But, I'm still pushing it in people's faces, and it's working, and people seem to like it, so yeah, all good.
Definitely. See, I had completely the opposite. When I did a casting with Max, we did a music video together with some friends of his from Spain, and rock and roll stuff, really good tune.
His music videos, he's done a few since then.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
A really great video, and one of the most enjoyable shoots I've been on in ages. And it was a guy, the music video, the story was a guy called Storm Hunter, and he's some weird guy who chases storms, whatever, and the whole video is about his relationship with the girl who's left behind, and she wants more stability, and she wants him to stop running around doing his thing. So I was there for the casting where he'd already cast the guy, I think, and we were casting girls. So as first AD, I'm along to film the castings and kind of help out and stuff like this. So we were sitting down at Met Film School in one of the little casting rooms on the day of the casting, and he sits and he said to me, "I've set up all these women to cast, but I've no ideas what to do with them." I'm thinking, well, that's a big mistake as a director. I mean, there's no dialogue, but you've obviously got a story. You want to see them do something. You want to know whatever the emotion it is that they're going to have to portray in the movie. Mm-hmm. And he turned to me and said, "You're an actor. You can improvise something with them, can't you?" And calls the first woman through the door. And I'm thinking,
oh, the deep end.
Well, hang on. You know what I mean? I am, but now I'm your cameraman for the day. Now I'm the first AD. Now I'm kind of, I'm trying to run the day because castings always run over and all this kind of stuff. So I think over the course of the next 6 hours, every girl who came through the door, I had to start an argument with her, make her really upset to the point of tears, and then let her dump me to feel better or whatever. So by the end of the day, it was a dozen women or whatever. I've been rejected by a dozen women. I went home with my self-esteem in absolute pieces. A, because I've been so nasty to all these actresses, and B, because they dumped me in the end. It was pointless or whatever. And I remember... I think at lunchtime, Max said to me, "You get around, don't you?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, the next actress coming in knows you. Oh. And I was like, "Well, how do you know that?" And he's like, "Because her headshot's got your name on it. You shot her headshots." And it was a girl I'd done, a Mexican girl, really beautiful girl who was a tango dancer, who was just starting out as an actress. I mean, really beautiful girl who I'd done a feature film with. She was in like a couple of scenes. And she was beautiful to look at and stuff like that, and really expressive, but not really an actress, more a dancer, So she was struggling. So she came through the door, saw me and thought, well, it's made, whatever. So she comes over and she's all friendly. And the first thing I'm doing is like, "What are you doing?" And, I'm kind of putting her down to the point of tears. And she didn't know what had hit her, and stuff like that. And I'm trying to cajole her around to dumping me, turning my back on her and walking away from her. And this is, I felt awful. I've not spoken to her or seen her or heard from her since. And I was just like, "Oh, please, Lord, I hope she understands that this is, this is the game that we're into, whatever," and stuff like that. But yeah, that was a weird day. It was
put her off her life.
Probably, mate, probably. But I think that also shows, some naivety in the director and not knowing what to do. I mean, this is something I'll probably get into when we start doing webcasts as opposed to just podcasts and all that kind of stuff. What do you do with somebody in the casting? Would you rather go in? I've always said, I could convince you're an amazing actor. I could spend 5 years studying Act 3, Scene 1 of Hamlet and come in and do To Be or Not To Be, and you think that guy's an undiscovered genius. Now, you might find that, I've done that syllable by syllable, every single day, 10 times a day for 5 years. And that I can't actually tie my own shoelaces in front of a camera, you know what I mean? So I think it's always a mistake to just let somebody come in and do their piece. Theatre is slightly different to film. But I want to talk to people, but not for too long, because I don't want to make them too nervous. But I want to find out, primarily if they're a dick. Like you said, if there's somebody I want to work with, if we're somebody on the same page, you don't have to necessarily be on the same page. You can be an absolute nightmare and we still get good work and all that kind of stuff. But I want to see how you take direction. I want to see if you're listening to me or you're somebody who knows better than I do. Because you're the actor and I'm only the director or the writer or whatever it is. But I've also learned, that was something very important to me when I started as. But I've also learned, cast your crew in the same way that you cast your actors. Don't just cast this guy because he's got a camera, because he's going to be a knob. He's going to start crying halfway through and go home, or he's going to start trying to dictate the shots, like punch him in the head and there's one famous for me and my brother. And the first film I ever directed, I won the Hitchcock Award. So we had a little bit of cash to go make this film, and the DOP dropped out a week before we were due to shoot, and that set the shoot back 2 months. I lost one of my actors, I lost a couple of locations, and in the end it turned out for the better. So the next DOP we brought was kind of standing, and I'd done all my over preparation and stuff like that, and on the very first shot he was like, "No, I don't like this shot." And I'm like, "I don't care what you like, just put the camera there, move it, I'm telling you, this is the way it's going to be." And every single shot for the next 4 days, "I don't like this shot." And at the end of it, he was like, "Oh, that was a good shot. Right, we'll do the next shot." "No, I don't like this shot." To the point where I think on the second day, my brother was going to shoot him in the head with the blank firing gun. And while he was in hospital, we were going to finish the camera. We were going to finish the movie with his camera, and that was a reasonable proposition at this point. But there was one point where we wanted a certain camera move between a guy coming into the room, interacting, and then walking out of the room with two people, and he kept just wobbling the camera because he didn't like the shot. And it got to the stage where instead of watching the actors, we both had I was on his left and my brother was on his right. He was backed into a corner, shooting, kind of quite wide in a kitchen shot, and we just stared at him. He was watching the actors to move the camera. We didn't even look at the screen or whatever. My brother stared into his left eye and I stared into his right eye. And it wasn't even good cop, bad cop. It was like, we will leather you if you move the camera. And in 3 takes, he got the shot that we wanted. And it was like, we are prepared to go that far to get the shot that we want and stuff like that. Now, if you're going to be a knob about it, then either quit and go home, mate, because you're going to get no change here at all.
Precisely. Just leave it off the camera. We'll do it ourselves.
Exactly. And then, another horror story, I tell this as kind of, a badge of honour, but also as a badge of shame. I made a cameraman cry once. And then that was down to him, we'd finished taking it, he'd say, yeah, that was crap. And I'm like, A, it's my job to tell him that, and B, if somebody said that to me on set, I'd knock you out, you know what I mean? So we had words on the second day. And he burst into tears and stuff. And while he was crying, I made him do another take. And I said to him, if you cry and ruin the sound on this take, then I'll make it really bad for you. And he stood there with tears pouring down his face, pressed go on the camera, and we got the shot, and he went home crying, and we all went to the pub, and everything, stuff like that. So yes, I am a tyrant and whatever and stuff like that, but to me, once you're there, then whatever it takes,
No, precisely. You've got to get the job done. You've only got that amount of time to
exactly.
do it.
There's always going to be problems. If I use this example constantly, if I said to you, do you want to come and sit in the snow, up to your neck in snow, in your pants in a field at 4 a.m, you'd be like, what kind of basket case fetish freak are you? Whereas if I said to you, yeah, but we've got the new Blackmagic 6K camera, you'd be like, I'll be there about 3:15. You can talk me through the manual and show me through the menus. You know what I mean? It's, well, what kind of weird freaks are we that would put ourselves through that just for the sake of getting some kind of love, acceptance, whatever it is. I don't care if you
play
like
with a new toy as well.
Exactly, but it's almost having gone through the edit of a film. I can't bear to watch the film anymore. By the time it's in front of an audience, I'm so not interested in seeing that film anymore because I've seen it frame. All I'm seeing is the mistakes. All I'm seeing is the bits we didn't get. All I'm seeing is the patch over sound, or the bits that we faked, or the bits that whatever. So it's kind of, it's such a masochistic, mad profession.
That's normal for us.
Exactly, but you're at a film festival putting out, and whether everybody claps, boos, throws things, whether I couldn't give a toss. But Monday I'm bright and early in my pants sitting in the snow again while you go through menus. It's a weird thing we do, mate. Yeah,
it is a weird industry that we're in, but we choose to be in it. So what can you do? We enjoy it.
Long may that continue. I think
rambled on too long, have we?
Well, we had that probably after about 5 minutes, but I think that's our time, mate.
Okay, cool.
Sam Simmons from SamAct Produced. Sam Simmons from SamAct Produced. Yeah, we've only been working together for like 3 years.
Yeah, you should know by now.
Yeah, I haven't been staring at your logo just day after day after day for the last 3 months.
Fellaheen Movies.
Jane from Fellaheen Movies says, Steve, this is to you. Sam, it's
Steve,
been a pleasure, mate.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
This is the start of something beautiful.
Or the end of something terrible.
I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to all of it.
I'll drink to anything.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Screaming at the Screen with John Ryder and Sam Simmons from SamAct Produced, podcast produced by Fellaheen Films.